The emergency room buzzed with chaotic energy. Can you imagine the frenzy? The beeps and shouts echoing off the walls? A brown-haired woman, her hair pulled back tight in a no-nonsense ponytail, was introduced as the new coordinator. Her file read, International Experience, Multi-Field Background. A doctor smirked sarcastically. So I guess you're about to save the entire world then. Oh, how wrong he was. But when a Special Forces soldier arrived, multiple trauma, severe blood loss, she moved instantly. Fast, decisive, precise, professional. A nurse whispered nervously, She moves exactly like a trained Special Forces medic. Nobody was laughing anymore. How could they, after witnessing that? Dr. Liana Gray, 34 years old, with long brown hair tied back in a precise military-style bun, had a tall frame that carried itself with unconscious authority. She speaks little but with deliberate precision, her observing eyes seeming to catalog every detail, her steady voice showing almost no visible emotion, like someone who had learned to compartmentalize feeling from function. Can you picture her, standing there so composed amid the chaos? She had just been hired at Kent Rock Military Hospital's emergency department, known for its crushing pressure, lightning speed, and zero tolerance for mistakes, the kind of place that chewed up new staff and spit them out within weeks. Her file stated, Clinical Medicine, Ph.D., previously worked in foreign conflict zones, details classified. The sparse information raised more questions than it answered. Why all the secrecy, right? A resident doctor named Jake Morrison mocked openly. Why work as an ER coordinator? You seem way overqualified for this. Shouldn't you be running some fancy research lab? Another nurse, Sarah Chen, laughed along. She's probably used to those pristine international hospitals with unlimited resources. Bet she doesn't know how to stop bleeding with paper gauze and prayer. Leona simply nodded. No visible reaction. No defensive explanation. No attempt to prove herself. Just quiet acknowledgement that she'd heard them talk about grace under fire. During the first shift briefing, she didn't contribute to discussions. Just stood in the back corner, arms crossed, observing the patient flowcharts with the intensity of someone studying battlefield intelligence. Her eyes moved systematically, exit locations, equipment placement, staff positioning, like she was memorizing tactical advantages rather than learning hospital procedures. Doesn't that make you wonder what she'd been through? But when a triage nurse mixed up priority levels during the afternoon rush, oh, the panic that could have caused. She quietly stepped forward, rearranged the classification tags with swift precision, and said softly, weak pulse, cold skin, delayed capillary refill. He's red priority, not yellow. She pulled out a black tactical pen, marked 3 warning points on the patient's wrist. Pulse points, pressure indicators. Nobody saw exactly what she was documenting. Minutes later, the patient crashed into hypovolemic shock. She was right again, unbelievable. The doctors started questioning among themselves what secrets was she hiding. When Dr. Martinez pressed her about her background, she only replied, I worked in environments with limited options, places where every second was the final test between life and death. The staff exchanged uncomfortable glances. Could you feel the tension in the air? Her tone wasn't boastful or dramatic. It was haunted, matter of fact, like she was describing weather rather than trauma. Dr. Martinez, the chief resident, pressed further. What kind of environments exactly? Research stations? Field hospitals? Liana paused, considering how much to reveal. The kind where you don't get to call for backup, where you either know exactly what you're doing or people die while you're still figuring it out, where hesitation equals death. During her first week, she demonstrated habits that made everyone uncomfortable. How eerie must that have been? She never used electronic monitors immediately. Instead, she checked pulse manually, examined skin color changes, tested pupil reflexes, assessed breathing patterns all within seconds, using only her hands and eyes. When asked why she didn't trust the machines, she explained, "Machines can malfunction, lie, or be destroyed. Bodies tell the truth if you know how to listen. A monitor shows you numbers. Touch shows you life." Wow, what a profound way to see it. A senior nurse, Patricia Williams, noticed other disturbing details. She positions herself with her back to walls during every shift, always knows where the exits are. And watch her hands, they're never more than arm's length from medical supplies, like she's expecting an attack. The ICU staff started gossiping, can you blame them? Dr. Gray moved through the hospital like someone conducting tactical reconnaissance. She memorized medication locations by day 2, knew exactly how many steps existed between treatment rooms, and could identify the sound of different emergency vehicles before they appeared around corners. But what unsettled them most was her supernatural composure during a multi-car accident with 6 critical patients arriving simultaneously, chaos everywhere. While everyone else shouted conflicting orders and ran chaotically between rooms, Liana stood in the center of the storm, directing traffic with subtle hand signals and whispered commands. A veteran paramedic named Tom Rodriguez observed, "I've worked with military medics for 15 years. She doesn't just think like them, she is one." But something happened to her out there. Head nurse Patricia Williams wrote in her private notes, "She treats patients like someone who's watched blood spill in complete silence. No panic, no excessive confidence. Every movement carries the muscle memory of someone who's been on active front lines. This woman has seen war." Heartbreaking, isn't it? A critical case arrived at 0347 hours. Staff Sergeant Marcus Thompson, Special Forces operator, injured during live combat training exercises in the mountains, multiple trauma injuries, 3 broken ribs, severe liver contusion, pneumothorax with tension building, rapid blood loss from internal bleeding, critical condition requiring immediate intervention. Liana stepped forward without waiting for authorization or assignment. Bold move. She established intraosseous access in his sternum within 30 seconds, called for emergency cricothyrotomy, set up, signaled for needle thoracostomy without hesitation. Her movements were fluid, precise, automatic, like muscle memory taking over conscious thought. Amazing. Dr. Morrison snapped irritably. "Who appointed you lead physician? This isn't your case." Liana didn't turn around, continuing to work. You can debate authority when you demonstrate the ability to keep a patient breathing for the next 5 minutes. Right now, he's dying. She worked without glancing at electronic monitors. Her assessment came purely from physical examination, checking pulse quality at multiple points, observing skin color changes, testing pupil response to light, listening to breathing sounds with just her ear against his chest, pure instinct. The wounded SEAL regained consciousness briefly, focused on her face, and froze in recognition. "Doc Gray? Holy shit, is that really you? Team 7 talks about you constantly. You're a goddamn legend." The entire emergency room fell into stunned silence. Every staff member stopped moving. Conversation ceased. Equipment beeping became the only sound. Can you hear the pin drop? Dr. Martinez, the chief physician, demanded answers. "Sergeant, how do you know Dr. Gray? What unit did she serve with?" Liana remained silent, focused on stabilizing her patient, but Staff Sergeant Thompson continued talking despite his injuries. "Last year, Delta 4 operational zone got hit hard coordinated ambush during medical evacuation. We were trapped in a forward aid station for 18 hours. No backup, no extraction, no field surgeon." He coughed, wincing in pain, but kept talking. "Just one woman, this woman treating 12 critical casualties with improvised equipment, bandaging wounds, suturing arteries barehanded, performing emergency surgery with field tools. We called her Angel Gray because she kept us alive when death was certain." Everyone in the emergency room turned to stare at Liana, jaw-dropping revelation. She methodically removed her bloodied gloves. "I did what was necessary. I never expected anyone to remember faces from situations like that. Dr. Martinez pulled her aside after the patient was stabilized. That soldier, he wasn't exaggerating, was he? Liana looked directly at him. War zones don't leave room for exaggeration. You either save lives or you don't. Stories don't matter when people are bleeding. In the hospital's classified database, Administrator Rebecca Foster discovered an unsigned field report buried in military medical archives. Delta 4 Forward Medical Street Asian, unidentified civilian medical personnel, 12 casualties treated, 100% survival rate post-emergency intervention. Operational note: treatment methodology consistent with Advanced Special Forces medical training protocols. The report was dated exactly 13 months ago. Dr. Martinez confronted her privately in the break room. That report, the anonymous medic, that was you, wasn't it? Liana stared out the window at the parking lot. I've been deployed to places where the nearest real hospital was 300 miles away through hostile territory, where the only medical choice was figure out how to save them immediately or watch them die in front of you. She explained her background carefully, choosing words precisely. Not officially military enlisted, but contracted as a civilian battlefield medical trainer and emergency responder. Her job was infiltrating active conflict zones and teaching advanced survival emergency response techniques where regular military doctors couldn't be safely deployed. I taught soldiers how to save each other when medical evacuation wasn't possible. Inspiring, yet so heavy. Staff Sergeant Thompson approached her later during his recovery. Ma'am, you saved Rodriguez that night. Bullet fragments lodged in his chest cavity, sucking chest wound, going into cardiac arrest. You operated using nothing but a tactical flashlight and field medical tools. Liana nodded slowly. Rodriguez recovered completely, married his girlfriend 2 months ago. They have a baby daughter now, named her Grace after what you gave him. For the first time since arriving at Kent Rock, she smiled slightly, but then her expression hardened again. That's exactly why I had to stop. When you save someone, you become responsible for every life they'll touch afterward. Every birthday, every wedding, every grandchild. The psychological weight becomes unbearable. Dr. Martinez began understanding. You're not overqualified for this position. You're traumatized by your qualifications. Liana corrected him firmly. I'm not traumatized. I'm experienced. There's a significant difference between those two conditions. Oh, the depth of that statement. The medical staff began noticing additional details about her behavior patterns during emergency situations. She unconsciously used military terminology, casualty collection point instead of triage area. She referred to medical supplies using field nicknames, Life Juice for plasma transfusions, Hope bags for IV fluid replacement, Red Gold for blood products. Her diagnostic speed bordered on supernatural. She could identify internal bleeding by observing how patients shifted their weight, detect brewing infections by smell alone, predict cardiac events by watching subtle breathing pattern changes that others missed completely. Nurse Patricia Williams asked during a quiet moment, "How do you know all this?" Medical school doesn't teach these assessment techniques. When you've held someone dying in your arms and there's no textbook to consult, your body learns to read death, approaching from miles away. Character marker, end of Act 2. Veteran nurse Patricia Williams wrote in her incident report, Dr. Gray doesn't work like someone who learned medicine in academic institutions. She works like someone who invented emergency medicine under enemy fire. Truly heroic, doesn't it give you chills? Hospital administration traced her original files. Can you imagine the shock when they uncovered her hidden past? Liana had been a battlefield trainer for Special Forces medics, codenamed SFM-9. She wasn't officially enlisted. She was a civilian medical operative specialized in infiltrating conflict zones to train survival emergency response where regular military doctors couldn't be deployed. Talk about bravery in the shadows. Reports documented 37 red zone infiltrations, over 140 soldiers saved. 6 times she handled multiple casualties alone with no backup. Unbelievable heroism, right? But after witnessing teammates die in a 2021 bombing, oh, the heartbreak that must have caused. She withdrew from the system, erased her records, refused all medals. The ER chief confronted her. "You're a legend. Why work here in such a junior position?" Liana replied, "I'm not here for recognition. I'm here to touch someone who's bleeding without needing anyone's permission." Following the revelation, nurses begged her to teach battlefield reflexes, how eager they were to learn from a true master. She refused formal instruction, but when anyone asked, she showed them. A young nurse inquired, "Where did you learn all this?" She said, "From the people I couldn't save." The hospital discovered more about her methods. Fascinating, isn't it? She'd been trained in tactical medicine, a hybrid of combat strategy and emergency care. This meant making life or death decisions with incomplete information under hostile conditions, using improvised equipment, pure survival instinct. Her techniques were unorthodox but devastatingly effective. She could stop arterial bleeding using shoelaces and safety pins, perform emergency chest decompression with a ballpoint pen, stabilize spinal injuries using cardboard and duct tape. But what made her legendary wasn't just medical skill. It was her psychological conditioning. Wow, the mental strength required. Dr. Martinez asked, "How do you stay so calm?" Leona explained, "In the field, panic spreads faster than infection. If the medic breaks down, everyone dies. So you learn to separate your emotions from your hands. Your hands save lives, your emotions process later." The truth came out gradually, piece by piece, revealing her extraordinary journey. She'd operated in Syria, Afghanistan, Myanmar, always as a contractor, never officially documented. Her job was to embed with local resistance groups and teach them to keep each other alive. Can you even fathom the risks? She'd performed surgery and bombed out buildings, delivered babies during air raids, amputated limbs with kitchen knives when surgical tools weren't available. Heart-wrenching dedication. The most shocking detail, she'd often worked completely alone for months. No backup team, no evacuation plan. Just me, a medical kit, and people who needed help. A staff psychiatrist evaluated her. "How did you handle the isolation?" Liana's answer was haunting. "You learn that death is patient. It will wait while you work, but the moment you stop working, it takes everyone." Her reputation spread beyond Kentucky. Word traveled fast. Military hospitals nationwide requested her consultation on extreme trauma protocols. She declined them all. When asked why, she said, "I'm done being a weapon disguised as a healer." The psychological profile revealed more deep and poignant insights into her soul. Liana suffered from survivor's guilt combined with hypervigilance disorder. She couldn't relax because her brain was permanently wired to scan for medical emergencies. Even grocery shopping, she's checking exit routes and counting people who might need help, noted her therapist. How exhausting that must be. But her trauma became the hospital's strength, turning pain into power. She redesigned their emergency response system based on battlefield triage principles. Treat the most savable first. Never waste time on hopeless cases. Keep moving until everyone's stable. The results were dramatic. Patient survival rates increased 23%. Response times dropped by 40 seconds. Average impressive turnaround, huh? Hospital administrators wanted to promote her to department head. She refused. "I don't want to manage people. I want to save them." The most revealing conversation happened with the original SEAL who recognized her. "Ma'am, why did you leave?" "You were saving lives." Liana's response was profound. "Because I realized I wasn't saving lives anymore. I was postponing deaths. And the difference matters," she explained her philosophy. "In war zones, you save who you can when you can. In hospitals, You're expected to save everyone all the time. The pressure breaks you differently. The SEAL understood. You came here to remember what healing feels like. Liana nodded. Here, when someone lives, they actually get to go home. Comment. Her movements weren't taught, they were survived. If you believe some skills can't be learned in school, they only come from watching life slip through your fingers, doesn't that hit home? The hospital established the revolutionary 90-second response program, directly inspired by Liana's demonstrated ability to assess and treat critical patients before electronic monitoring systems could even boot up and provide baseline data, game-changing innovation. No sterile lecture halls or academic theory, just the old auxiliary emergency room where medical trainees had to perform complete patient triage manually, working in simulated darkness, ambient noise, equipment failures, and without digital screens or automated alerts. Intense, right? Liana personally designed each training scenario with brutal realism. Recognize hypovolemic shock progression through pupil reflex testing alone. Place endotracheal tubes without video laryngoscopy assistance. Maintain psychological stability when cardiac monitors fail during active resuscitation. Stay functional during mass casualty simulations with limited resources. A second-year resident, Dr. Jennifer Park, wrote in her training journal, I'd never experienced that level of controlled terror before, but Dr. Gray looked directly at me and said, you don't need absolute certainty to make the right decision. You just need to be more right than wrong more often than not. A small bronze nameplate was permanently mounted in the auxiliary emergency room. Grace stood here. Time listened. The program attracted unprecedented attention from medical institutions nationwide, drawing crowds from afar. Students and residents traveled hundreds of miles specifically to train under what became known as battlefield medicine protocols. But Liana maintained strict operational security rules. No photography or video recording during training sessions, no social media posts about techniques or methods, no publicity, interviews, or media coverage. Smart and protective. This program isn't about building my reputation, she explained to curious journalists. It's about preparing medical professionals for situations when everything that can go wrong does go wrong simultaneously. Her teaching methodology was completely unconventional. Instead of textbook memorization, she used immersive storytelling and scenario-based learning. Imagine you're treating someone's father during a power outage. Equipment fails, communication systems are down. What's in your hands? What's in your medical knowledge? And what's in your heart when technology can't save you? Trainees learn to work purely by touch, sound, smell, and intuition. They memorize the tactile feel of different pulse qualities, the audio signatures of various breathing patterns, the olfactory indicators of different infection types, the visual cues of internal bleeding. Sensory mastery at its finest. Dr. Martinez observed with fascination. She's not teaching conventional medicine. She's teaching medical instinct and battlefield intuition. The most psychologically powerful lesson occurred during a simulated mass casualty event with 40 volunteer patients. Edge of your seat. Intensity. While other medical instructors shouted commands and created organized chaos, Liana moved through the scene whispering, listen carefully to the silence between heartbeats. That's the space where you'll find the correct answer. Students learned what became known as the Gray method. Trust your hands before your eyes. Trust your experience before your education. Trust your developed instinct before written instructions. Trust your training before your fear. Empowering wisdom. The program's success was measured using unconventional metrics, not just patient survival rates, but confidence levels under extreme pressure. Students consistently reported feeling prepared for medical apocalypse scenarios after completing training. Life-changing readiness. One graduate, Dr. Michael Chen, explained the psychological impact. Other residency programs teach you what to do when medical situations go according to plan. Dr. Gray teaches you what to do when every single thing goes catastrophically wrong at exactly the same time. The hospital received formal requests from international humanitarian organizations, global recognition. War-torn countries specifically wanted to send their medical personnel to train using Liana's unconventional methods. She agreed to create detailed training materials and instructional protocols, but firmly refused international travel. I've seen enough active war zones for several lifetimes. Now I help train people who want to heal them from a distance. The psychological impact on Kentrock's permanent staff was profound and measurable. Nurses stopped experiencing panic attacks during emergency situations. Residents made faster, more confident decisions under pressure, transformative growth. The entire emergency department developed what hospital administrators officially termed battlefield calm under fire. But Liana remained characteristically humble about the transformation. I'm not teaching anything revolutionary or new. I'm just helping people remember medical knowledge they already possess but haven't accessed under pressure. Liana never accepted any awards or recognition ceremonies, still worked grueling night shifts when most senior staff chose day rotations, still didn't introduce herself using the doctor title during patient interactions, still wore the same simple scrubs instead of the white coat that symbolized medical authority. True humility shines. But every trainee, resident, and nurse knew the unspoken rule. If she stepped into your medical case, immediately drop your ego and open your ears. When she eventually requested transfer to a remote border medical station, a place most doctors considered career suicide, she left behind a handwritten note taped to the auxiliary emergency room door. If you have to make a life or death decision in 10 seconds, remember this: human life doesn't require perfection. It just needs you to refuse to walk away when things get difficult. The auxiliary emergency room was permanently renamed the Gray Shift by unanimous staff vote, and during every night shift, when medical situations became impossible and nobody was completely sure what to do next, someone would inevitably whisper, "What would Gray do?" Even though she wasn't physically there anymore, her legacy lived permanently in the hands of every student she'd personally trained, enduring influence. They carried her lessons to hospitals across the country, spreading the methodology. Stay calm when chaos erupts around you. Trust instinct over institutional protocol. Never stop fighting for life until life stops fighting back. Always remember that medicine is about humans saving humans. Years later, a documentary production crew wanted to interview her about the program's national success and influence on emergency medicine protocols. She politely declined. "The story isn't about me personally. It's about every person who chose to learn how to save lives instead of just hoping someone else would take responsibility." The persistent interviewer pressed further, "But you revolutionized emergency medicine training nationwide." Leona's final recorded words were characteristically simple. "I didn't revolutionize anything. I just help people remember that medicine isn't about machines or protocols or institutional procedures. It's about one human being making the conscious choice to refuse to let another human being die today." The Gray Method is officially taught in medical schools worldwide. Students learn that the most advanced medical technology available is still the human heart that refuses to give up on saving life, inspiring truth. But Liana Gray herself remains exactly where she's always chosen to be, working quietly in places where help is needed most, saving lives without fanfare, asking for nothing in return except the opportunity to help. Because true heroes don't need recognition, awards, or public acknowledgement. They just need someone whose life hangs in the balance. They just need the chance to make a difference. They just need to know that when they leave this world, it's slightly better than when they found it. And somewhere in a small border medical station, Dr. Liana Gray continues her work. One patient, one heartbeat, one life at a time. The legend lives not in her name, but in every life she saved and every student she's taught to save others. If you believe in stories that touch the heart like this one, leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe. The Veteran Story. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people are creating and telling stories, not mass-produced AI.